I blinked and we were here. It's so insane. So much has happened between then and now. And so many wonderful things, so many wonderful experiences that we're coming to the end, literally, of the Yellow Brick Road is just like, it's insane.
It's about damn time.
Welcome to the official Wicked podcast. Over the next 8 weeks, we're taking a peek behind the curtain and stepping behind the scenes of one of the most beloved stories ever told. From the Emerald City to Munchkinland, this is your all-access pass into Oz. When director Jon M's Wicked for Good hits theaters on November 21st, you'll see the Oz you know and love in an entirely new way. And over these next few weeks, we'll be following the Yellow Brick Road right alongside the cast and creative team who brought that epic vision to life. My name is Chris Murphy. I'm a staff writer at Vanity Fair, and I'll be your guide, your trusted pilot, your Ozian Sherpa, part storyteller, part superfan, on your Wicked journey. Together, we'll travel through friendship, fate, and magic. This is a story about how something truly defied gravity and became an undeniable phenomenon. For me, Wicked has always been more than a musical. As you'll hear many times on the podcast, I first saw Wicked on Broadway for my 11th birthday way back in 2004, and it's stuck with me ever since. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Darling, it's Momsy and Popsicle. Guess what?
I've been lucky enough to have covered Wicked for Vanity Fair, writing multiple stories about it for the magazine, including the November 2024 cover featuring our favorite witches. Today, we begin at, where else? The beginning, with a deep dive into Wicked's origin story, how the musical we all know and love came to be. We'll hear from producer Marc Platt, director Jon M, composer and lyricist Stephen Schwartz, writers Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox, and, of course, our heroes Elphaba and Grande, Cynthia, Erivo, and Ariana Grande. We'll start with Marc Platt, who's been with the story since he first read Gregory Maguire's novel Wicked, published exactly 30 years ago in 1995. The Wicked novel reinvented L. Frank Baum's beloved American fairy tale from the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West, and imagined what had been happening in Oz before Dorothy dropped in. That idea, in the hands of Marc Platt and his collaborators, would open the door to a theatrical phenomenon that would change Broadway, and now cinema, forever. Here's Marc.
A long time ago, before you were born, as a young kid, I grew up in a time when there were certain television events that the entire family would gather around the TV and watch an event. And The Wizard of Oz airing, which I'm sure occurred no more than once a year, was one such event. And that would be the 1939 MGM movie. And that was my first encounter with it as a young child.
But Oz has a way of calling people back. Years later, Marc stumbled upon Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, a daring retelling that turned the story we thought we knew upside down.
It was the essential idea, the brilliant notion that Gregory had of telling a story from a different character's point of view, and from a character who I thought was one thing, and perceived to be one thing, evil, wicked, and learned through his retelling that actually she's quite the opposite. She was good, not only good, but courageous and capable of making choices to defend what she felt was goodness and to speak truth to power. That singular idea, more than the Wizard of Oz of it all, is what drew me in. And that the character of Elphaba, as created by Gregory Maguire in his retelling, was a quintessential outsider. Individuals who think different or look different or feel different are in some ways outside and journey through the course of the story, through interaction with other characters, to a different place of belonging.
Initially, you were thinking of going straight to making Wicked a movie and not a musical.
That's correct. When I became an executive at Universal, that book was in development as a film. And when I became a producer after I left being an executive, I said, there's only one project, if you would let me, because I'm setting up shop here at Universal, to take with me. And it was that project, Wicked, which had some interesting screenplays that were being developed as films. but something was lacking for me in there's something magical and emotional that was not finding its way through those screenplay adaptations. And one day Stephen Schwartz called me and said, I know you're developing a film, Wicked. Would you ever consider making it a musical?
That's the best idea I've ever heard for a musical. I remember like every hair on my arm stood up.
This is Stephen Schwartz. At the time, he was already something of a legend. With Godspell and Pippin and Pocahontas and The Prince of Egypt already under his belt, the Oscar, Grammy, and Golden Globe winner had already made his mark on Broadway and Hollywood. When he had a crazy idea about how to adapt Maguire's novel, Marc Platt took the meeting.
I was very lucky to find a studio head who actually knew about musicals, was interested in musicals, and had a sympathetic response to my saying to him, listen, I know you're trying to do this as a movie, but I don't think it's going to work, at least not at first as a movie. I think it should start as a stage musical. I really feel I know how to do this with the proper collaborators. Please give me a chance. And Marc, fortunately, was open to that idea.
First of all, I was a huge fan of Stephen Schwartz's.
Yeah.
And second of all, the moment he said music, I thought, well, music, first of all, brings magic to a piece. And that instantly felt like the right idea. It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Many individuals' first reference of The Wizard of Oz is from a film that contains music in it. But most significantly, the story of Wicked is about characters presenting themselves to the world they live in, which is Oz a certain way, but inside feeling a different way. And when you're telling a story with music, songs, lyrics allow a character to present themselves one way, but then to literally sing to an audience or to a camera what they are actually feeling inside.
Loathing, unadulterated loathing for your face,
your voice,
your clothing. Let's just say I loathe it all.
Stephen Schwartz got to work on the music and lyrics. And for the book, he brought in Winnie Holzman, an award-winning playwright and the mind behind the critically acclaimed TV series that introduced the world to a teenage Claire Danes.
I knew her work from television, particularly a show she created called My So-Called Life, which I thought was one of the best shows ever about a young woman and young women of the age that Elphaba and Glinda are, and just how she wrote those characters and the nuance and complexity, the humor, and the way she could get inside those sorts of characters, I thought was very good for this project. It was important to me as a cisgender man that a story that was essentially about two women, that it would be ideal if a woman was the other writer of it. So I was looking in that direction, and Winnie was the first choice.
Stephen is such a master of this genre. He knows so much about making musicals, and I felt like I was learning all the time.
That's Winnie Holzman. She wrote the book for the Wicked stage musical and later teamed up with Dana Fox to co-write the screenplays for Wicked and Wicked for Good.
All of us writers know that the only way to get better at writing is to keep writing, and I'd been doing a lot of writing. So I'd learned a lot, and I was learning from Stephen. So it was really that kind of experience of, how do you describe, we're about to try to describe writing the movies, and that's going to be challenging as well. But when you're doing something that's very challenging, it can be daunting, but it's wonderful because you feel like you're stretching as a person and learning and getting to be getting to be better at your craft and even in your life. We all had so much invested. And I think that can be really said of the two movies. We were so firmly and strongly motivated to make it the best we could. And that's what kept everything flowing and kept everything moving forward.
Along with Stephen and Winnie, a remarkable group of artists helped bring Wicked to life on stage, and many of them have stayed connected as the story takes flight on screen. Director Joe Mantello, musical stager Wayne Salento, orchestrator Stephen Aramis, and costume designer Susan Hilferty all helped shape the look and sound of the original Broadway production. And while new designers like Paul Tazewell and Nathan Crowley brought their own visions to the films, several members of that original creative team returned as consultants. In other words, Oz may look a little different on screen, but the magic of the stage play is still there.
So finding that group of people who shared the passion, had the talent to bring it to stage was a great journey, complicated to bring it to stage. We started in San Francisco. We had lots of issues that we thought we could better the story. We could improve some songs. There were things that weren't working in it. And once you're on stage and you're moving towards Broadway, you got to move pretty quickly.
The train has left the station.
The train has left the station, exactly. But what was clear from the opening in San Francisco, even a very flawed production, was that audiences were embracing the story, that something in the ingredients of Wicked was speaking in a very deep way to audiences who were wild with their enthusiasm. I mean, by the third or fourth day of being in public performances, there was a line around the block. Unbeknownst to me, one night there was a young USC film student who was from the Bay Area, who had gone home to visit his mom. And she said, let's go see this new musical at the Curran. And he did. And he was there undoubtedly on a night that I was there. And that was John Chu.
She called me, and I forget what year at film school I was at that time at USC. And she said, come back. I can go out. Let's go see a show. And Stephen Schwartz has this brand new show based off of the Wizard of Oz. And let's see how it is.
That's Jon M. Chu, the visionary director behind Crazy Rich Asians and In the Heights. From day one, his passion for Wicked was undeniable.
Well, one, Wizard of Oz has been such a big part of my life growing up. Not just the movie, but the book itself, the lore of it, the mythology. My parents came from another country to this country believing in the American dream, and they fulfilled that and they instilled that in us. And Wizard of Oz, the magic of movies, the magic of stories was always a part of our life. So it has a deep, deep place in my DNA. And when we talk about stories or fairy tales, it is at the center of that all. So when I saw Wicked, which this was 2003, I got a call from my mom who, the year before had gone through chemo. So she wasn't able to go out. And our whole, upbringing, when I was the youngest of 5 kids, she'd always take us to theater every weekend in the city in San Francisco. And so it was a tradition of ours to go see all the musicals, all the tours that were coming through town. So I flew down. It was at the Curran Theater before it ever reached Broadway. Wow. And so I was a patient zero. I had no context, no idea of what to expect, no judgments on it. I just got to sit clean. I think that was really valuable for me to experience Wicked without anything coming before it.
Yeah, I mean, to see it that early on and for that, to have that experience before it got to Broadway, before it became this Tony-winning, behemoth smash musical, I have to imagine that, having that experience served you really well when you're given this mammoth task of having to adapt this Broadway property into not 1, but 2 feature films.
Yeah, I mean, I basically was a fan from the first moment I saw it. I knew the points, because I was so fresh to it, I knew the moments where I was in awe. I knew the moments where it took me back to The Wizard of Oz and what that made me feel and what lines or what moments made that feel like that. I was there for the surprises and the twists and the turns. I had no idea. And I also was there of being introduced to Elphaba and Glinda through Kristen and Adina and being just overwhelmed by an expression of friendship that I had never seen before. And at the time I was in college, so I was in that in-between stage myself, leaving high school, leaving my friends from high school who I'd known since kindergarten, some of them, and starting a new identity or a new life with new friends, and trying to balance what does that mean for people that you've known for so long and now they're going to be out of your life, and what is that value? Is that just they're just in the past, or does what they give you last for your life, and does that value still sit there? And so I was going through all of those emotions and growing up, leaving my childhood stories.
After the break, we'll talk about why Jon M was the perfect person to bring Wicked to the big screen and what makes his storytelling a fantastic fit for Oz. And later, Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo share their audition stories and how they each found a piece of themselves in Grande and Elphaba. Welcome back. When Marc Platt first fell in love with the story of Grande and Elphaba, he imagined it as a film. But before it could make its way to the screen, Wicked had to find its home on Broadway, where it became a phenomenon. And years later, he was still waiting for the right person to bring it full circle. Here's Marc.
Quite frankly, even though there were really wonderful filmmakers interested, somehow I was waiting without knowing I was waiting for the great Jon M
Yeah.
appear at a moment where there was an inflection point where we needed a filmmaker. I was ready to go make the movies, and there he was. And that was a great Ozian gift. I got to watch Jon evolve, mature, and grow into. There's always a great filmmaker and a director who sort of tapped into pop cultural stories. But I got to watch him not only do that, but really grow and mature with his brilliant imagination, his tremendous sense of craft and cinema, his love of cinema, and his passion and love for Wicked, which I didn't think about until I went on the journey with him and realized that this is someone who loves it so much that he would reinvent and invent, but with a protection and a love and wanting to protect the fans and the characters as much as I did.
Jon M, who I now just refer to as Jon, is possibly one of the kindest, most generous and smart human beings I've ever met.
The love for Wicked's fearless leader, Jon M seems to be unlimited. Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, Jonathan Bailey, and Bronwyn James, along with the creative minds behind the camera, production designer Nathan Crowley, costume designer Paul Tazewell, and co-writer Dana Fox, all had something to say about working with him. You'll be hearing more from each of them in the coming weeks.
We talked about Jon being a good director, and actually I don't think he's a good director. I think he's an excellent director. I think he's a bit of a genius. I don't know that many people would have been able to manage the story arc of two different movies running concurrently against each other.
He is truly the most empathetic person on this planet. I think there's no one more specific and there's no one more loving. And it takes a human being with a heart like his, who has just such an innate understanding of the human experience, to be able to do these characters justice the way that he has.
Jon M, what a genius. It's a really masterful achievement.
Yeah.
Better than anybody I've ever seen can take the spectacle of a musical on stage and bring all the enjoyment of that and mix it with naturalistic, nuanced, cinematic, modern acting, storytelling in a way that, just skins the cat for me, rings the bell for me.
The detail of the his sort of emotional and imaginative adaptation in his mind of the source material, and to be able to communicate that to everyone around him in such a lovely and calm and generous way, to get the performances and to get it's just like amazing.
Jon M and the producers set a tone that was very creatively freeing and encouraging as we were creating this world. That it offered an environment where I could really, take flight and do my best and work with amazing people.
Jon was always there as a guiding light, who is this very generous creative person, then I think this is definitely one of the few times where everyone gelled, everyone did things for each other.
Jon is one of these directors that you pray you get on every single job. He's just absolutely incredible. There's no small parts when it comes to Jon Chu.
Once you work with Jon Chu, you never want to work with anyone else ever again because it's so incredible. And he shares his joy and creativity and his childlike enthusiasm and his brilliance. He likes to share it with everyone who's in the process with him. So I just felt so inspired and alive working with him. I said, anytime you call me, I don't care what it is, I am going to say yes. And he was like, okay. And a few months later, he called me and said, okay, I got another one for you. And I said, yes. And he's like, do you want to know what it is? And I said, no, I want to do it. And he said, are you sure you don't want to know what it is? I was like, nope. I think it would be fun if I did an entire deal without knowing what movie I was working on.
Really?
And he said, of course I'm going to tell you. And he said, it's Wicked.
That's Dana Fox. And not only was the movie Wicked, she was going to be working alongside the original creators, Winnie Holzman and Stephen Schwartz.
I felt like I had won the lottery. And I have been a fan of Winnie's, frankly, as a writer for my whole life because I was so obsessed with My So-Called Life. I had t-shirts. I had to have the t-shirts made because I don't think there were actual t-shirts. So I had I Love Jordan Catalano shirts made. And I was completely obsessed with her work. And so just the thought that I would get to work with her was so exciting. And my secret was that this was during the pandemic and all of Broadway was closed and I had never seen the play.
What?
And so I was literally the only American human who had not seen Wicked. But I somehow knew that I should be incredibly excited about because I knew about it and I knew how much everyone loved it. So I was ecstatic, but then I was immediately like, oh, how am I going to do this if I don't know what this play is like? So I took Winnie and Stephen's script. I read it over and over and over and over again while playing the music. And I just did, I did their play over and over and over again. So it was fully in my bones. And then I watched a million YouTube clips. And then the second Broadway opened, I was in my mask. I was first in line. And I was like, okay, now we're back. Okay, I got this.
Wow.
So that I think made me, that was what I hope I brought to it, Winnie, is that I was able to ask Winnie and Stephen all these questions that might have seemed sort of dumb at the time, but really it was at getting at these things that possibly in the play you might take for granted. Well, does water kill her? Does it actually kill her?
Yeah.
Just all these little sort of world building questions that I had for them that I think opened us up to different avenues to pursue for the movie. I hope I did that for you, Winnie.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it was a big advantage, whether planned or not, that there she was, a person who was coming with no with no pre-decided ideas of how the movie should necessarily be different or be the same, and that. We were all striving for open-mindedness, Chris. I mean, this is a big part of how I approach really any collaboration, but especially here, I really felt it was my job not to be the writer of the play, but to really be saying, I'm a screenwriter now. We're adapting it. I want to open my mind. Dana's questions and her just having a really outside point of view was just so helpful. And it was the little ingredient that helped us, to have conversations that, that who knows, maybe we wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
We also knew that we needed to get people to see and love this movie who had never seen the play. And then, of course, once I did see the play, I became sort of a mega fan. And, then I was useless, because I was like, don't change a word. It's perfect,
There were times, as you can imagine, when we would be working on a piece of it, a sequence, say, and really going off in a lot of different directions. And Dana and I would experiment back and forth with different approaches. And in the end, we would have Jon Chu say, well, maybe we should just do it like you do it on stage. And that didn't happen all the time. I mean, as you can see, there's a real balance between what's on stage, some of which is really recreated in the movie. There's some really completely original material. that is woven in. And there's some stuff that I had actually been writing beforehand, before I met Dana and Jon, that when Stephen and I were trying to get the movie started, you could say. So there's this interesting interweaving that went on.
Now that they had their script, they needed their stars. Here's Marc Platt again.
Many talented, beautiful actresses through the years raised their hands to want to play these two roles. And somehow, because of our timing, both in terms of their availability, their interest, their age appropriateness, it was the right moment for us to cast Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Just because they had such different ways of getting to Oz, and yet they're the perfect combination.
Well, again, from the get-go, how do you find... we've had years of extraordinarily talented actresses playing Elphaba around the world and Glinda around the world. We all remember Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth and the indelible performances that they created and the gifts they gave to all of us in the initial creation of these characters. So it was important to find two women who could honor those portrayals, and yet bring something of their own to a cinematic experience and an adaptation. Ariana was someone who kind of stalked me for many, many years. She saw Wicked on stage when she was maybe 12 years old and has a picture of her visiting Kristen Chenoweth backstage. And at various points in her journey and my journey, I'd get a call, can Ariana come see you? Or when I did the 15th TV special celebrating the 15th anniversary of Wicked on Broadway, Ariana participated in that, actually singing The Wizard and I, an Elphaba song.
Yeah.
And so I knew of her interest, but Jon and I held auditions, and any actors who was interested in the film version came in to see us in Los Angeles and auditioned and sang and read scenes. And in every reading she did, in every song she sang, she was the most interesting. There was something so embedded in who she was that felt Glinda, and yet she was bringing something very Glinda-esque to every reading. She really claimed the role. Each time she came in stronger and stronger.
I wanted the reason why I landed this role to be performance-based. I wanted to earn it. I care so deeply about Wicked that I didn't want this if it meant I weren't right for it. I've loved it so long. It's so much bigger than me, than us, than anything. And I had a deep sense that if I'm not right for this, that's okay. But I want to give it my absolute all, and I want to earn it.
The truth we all believe by and by.
After the break, how Wicked found its leading ladies. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande open up about their intense audition process, and the casting directors share how they knew these two were destined to bring Elphaba and Glinda to life. Welcome back. By now, the story's become part of Wicked legend. Ariana Grande had been manifesting playing Glinda for years. When word of the audition reached her, she didn't hesitate for a second.
Well, I had been chasing Marc Platt down for about 10 years, wondering when this movie was going to happen, when I would have the opportunity to audition, to put myself on tape, to even just send something somewhere. I remember I took so many videos on my phone years and years ago, performing the songs to send, to have ready, just in case. And so this was like many years in the waiting, I suppose. And when I finally found out that the audition was coming, I started training every single day with my vocal coach, Eric Vitro, with my acting coach, Nancy Banks, to just kind of make sure that I was ready. And also my voice was in a place where it was constantly belting and doing different things. So I kind of had to retrain my voice to be able to sing more classically and more operatic. And that is my range, but it's a very different style of singing that I haven't really done since I was much, much younger. So it takes the chords a while to kind of reacclimate, and just like any other muscle, requires a lot of training. So I dug in as soon as I heard that maybe in a few months they might start seeing people. I was like, great, now's the time. I'm starting the process. This is like the Olympics. We gotta go. And I remember I went in for my first audition, and I just remember being like buzzing in a state of, I don't even know. Down to my underwear, I was like, what underwear would Glinda wear today? Like, what, you know what I mean? I was so excited. I had like a little portion of my closet that was all just little pink tops and stuff, just in case I would need them for a callback or something. And yeah, I went in 3 different times, and it was so thrilling. And I just remember immediately falling in love with Jon and his mind and his thoughtfulness. And like, it's just so evident immediately how much he cares about these women and how deeply he knows them. There were like certain pieces of myself that felt really aligned and adjacent to her in ways that I maybe didn't even think of before. Like, the reasons why I loved her were obvious, but maybe the real reasons why I felt so connected to her were deeper and less obvious at first.
You can have all you ever wanted. I know. But I don't want it. No. I can't want it
Cynthia was one of the last actresses we saw, because I can't remember what she was doing, but
yeah,
she was working on something and was tired. She was one of the last folks to come in. We knew Cynthia to be a force of nature. I had seen her in The Color Purple on Broadway and had seen nothing quite like that performance. I'd seen her work on film, and I knew that she was special. Something about her was very generational in her talent. And I knew she had the power to be Elphaba. And so her singing Defying Gravity for Jon and I it wasn't surprising that she could sing that song with the power that very few can.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what surprised us a little bit, and it speaks, I think, to her love of the underlying material, the way Wicked, the musical, meant so much to her as a young student in London, as someone who I think felt very outside for much of her life. What surprised, I think, was the vulnerability that she displayed from the get-go. Her first song she sang from us was The Wizard and I. And not only did we feel the joy and the yearning of someone who so much wanted to be loved, but we felt a real vulnerability that underneath the armor that sometimes Cynthia carried, or her characters carry, you saw this big, big heart and this raw emotion. And we were both, everybody in the room was so instantly moved by it.
It sounds truly crazy. And true, the vision's hazy. But I swear someday there'll be a celebration throughout Oz. That's all to do with me.
I told my team not to tell me anything. I did not want to know anything about it unless there actually was a chance of me being a part of it. I was just like, I don't want to know any details unless it's actually going to become real. I just didn't want to know. And then a meeting comes up to speak to Jon, and we just sort of, he's like kindred spirits, you know? which is really easy to talk to him about it. And I found it really easy to be myself with him. And then he was like, I've just got to think about a couple of things and then I'll get back to you. And we bumped into each other at an event and we had long conversations about it and thoughtful conversations about what it could be. And then I got the call to come in and do a camera test with 2 other actresses. And I had to do basically all of her songs, pretty much, and maybe 2 or 3 scenes. And I remember that day I was rehearsing and practicing and trying to learn everything, and I was throwing myself into it so much. And by the end of rehearsing, I had this wave of dizziness, and I was like, I felt like I wasn't going to be well. And then all of a sudden I was fine. I go to the audition. It's 3 hours of singing and rehearsing and speeches and scenes, and I feel really, really alive, but I know I've poured everything into it. By the end of that audition, I get in the car and I start to get a fever. So by the time I get to my door from the audition, I'm done. And I'm then bedridden for 4 days with 104 fever. So it's one of those, I feel like the universe put it in my lap and said, this is yours to lose, do the work or not. And I wanted to do the work. It's so interesting. I don't know if I've ever told anyone this, and I loathe to say it because I don't want it to sound arrogant, but I had always said that if the only way I would do this production is if it was on film.
She, like Ariana, claimed the role. In fact, they were so strong in each of their journeys to claim these roles that we never read them together.
Yeah, which is really kind of a roll in the dice.
A risk and roll of the dice, but there was, as wonderful as all the other choices were, they really rose to the top. And that's why I use the word claim the role. They made it undeniable for both of us.
They both were so individual, and they both were so present, and they both spent so much time listening.
This is Bernie Telsey. Along with Tiffany Little Canfield, he helped cast the original Wicked on Broadway. Both of them returned to help find our Elphaba and Glinda and to assemble the incredible cast of the film.
I mean, to me, that's what made me realize, and I think everyone as well, realized they would be great together, because neither of them in their own auditions or with the people they might have been reading with were ever trying to overpower, were ever trying to make it about Glinda or about Elphaba. You know what I mean? They were putting so much energy into the other person that you knew naturally these are 2 actresses who know how to do that, who know how to listen, who know how to be with another person. And so that gave everybody, I think, the confidence.
Yeah, and I would say even on a technical level, seeing them read with other performers, we were still getting to see how they entered this process and see the similarities between the 2 of them. And I think musically, they have language that is shared of really understanding harmony, really understanding riffing and things like that a lot of actors, we recommend stay away from that.
Yeah.
These 2 know how to do it where it infuses character as opposed to vocal pyrotechnics.
Love that.
Right. And I think we got to see glimpses of that with both of them throughout the audition process. So kind of knew vocally this could be really, really exciting.
How intentional was it for both of you to sort of cast a really wide net when searching for these roles and who would portray these roles, and not just being like, okay, it's got to be one of these 10 film actors?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's one of the beauties of working for Jon Chu, which we've been lucky enough to do before. He wanted everyone explored. He wanted our imagination to run wild. Think of anyone, right now, Universal, Marc Platt, David Stone, they're all saying, get us the best people, the people that we feel will tell this Ozian type story. And so we didn't have any limits. It was never a rush of
write down the 10 people you think can play this part and we'll go after them. It was like, also put down the 100 people who probably might not get it, or you don't know if they will get it. And whether it was the wizard, whether it was, Marble, any of the other supporting roles, as well as the two witches. So that was sort of like the challenge. And it was exciting to think that way, actually.
Right. I think we were focused on getting the right actor for each role and considering the essence of that role and the quality needed to tell the story and the skill set needed by that performer to accomplish that. So I'm actually wondering if it is what is baked into the story of Wicked, right? What makes a person Ozian or able to tell that story. And also there's the different kingdoms, right, of Oz. Like, I think it's kind of baked into where you get excited about the differences in the actors, putting them together in this world.
Can you talk about the process of casting Ariana and bringing her back in and when it clicked for all of you with her?
Yeah, the reason for bringing her back in was, again, it's what we talked about earlier, was allowing her to do what she knows how to do, but hasn't had an opportunity to share it, right? And once Jon put up from the beginning and said, we got to get you to a certain place, you don't just walk in and do that. And she was one of these unbelievably human beings who was like, I can do this in my living room and keep practicing, and I hear what Jon is saying, or I could come in with you and Tiffany and we can work on it and you could share with me, or I could just do it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like she had to prove something to us, but it gave her the confidence so that when then she did come in finally for Jon and Marc, she was already at the place. She'd already, was at the place of trying out her homework and having an opportunity to take all the notes that Jon was giving her earlier. And she was just so perfect. You know what I mean? It was just, she wasn't playing it for the back row. She was just trusting it. And that's what someone who, as we know, she's a famous pop star. It's not like she's auditioning. Even again, Cynthia had stopped auditioning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when you're seeing people, and we saw other women too prior to them, when you're seeing people who are not used to auditioning, you need to give them a chance to get back into that headspace and treat it like a rehearsal rather than an audition.
I think for me, the biggest thing was how funny she was. And reading with her and reading with other actresses, because Jon Chu loves to say, Tiffany, get up in this space. You're going to be Elphaba while they sing, popular to you. That's why you see the back of my head sometimes in those videos with my mask on. And, I'm getting a front row seat of like, is the person actually making me laugh? Like, am I trying, like, do I feel like Elphaba getting kind of like changed, right? Because she doesn't like her. And then suddenly it's like, okay, I'm giving over to her. And I would say with Ari, it was really funny right from the beginning, even if she was dressed sort of like Ari the pop star. So it was kind of hard to see fully Glinda. For me, I did have a feeling of like, she was the funniest person we saw today.
Funniest person, the most interesting person in the room, I think Jon Chu said. I love, it's so fantastic.
Popular. I know about popular, and with an assist from me to be who you'll be instead of dreary who you were. Well, there's nothing that can stop you from becoming popular. Lar, la, 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 la.
I'm quite excited for people to see like how far these characters have come and what the progress has been between the time you left them and where they are now, because it is a big jump. It's a big journey that they've been on, and you get to meet them again when they're somewhere else in their lives now. It's really special.
Absolutely.
I think you kind of know when something's special, when something feels good, but you don't know how other people will take it. You don't know what the reaction will be until the reaction happens. And so as it was happening, I think even I was like, wow, this is really something. This is actually taking on a life of its own, and the phenomenon that it became was, I don't think anyone really expected it to be that, because that's not something you can really orchestrate. It just sort of happened, and so watching it from the inside was really, really special. It's very exciting.
I feel so grateful. I feel so excited. I feel so like I feel so excited. And, this second half has been a huge secret to all of us for years now. And yet the first part was happening at the same time as the second part. So for us, they're intertwined irrevocably. Like they can't, like one doesn't exist without the other. So for them to finally be let in on this thing that has been so important to us and so special to us for such a long time, it's so exciting.
We are so excited for what's ahead. In the coming weeks, we'll keep talking with the cast and creative team behind Wicked, revisiting some of our favorite moments from the film as we get ready for the release of Wicked for Good on November 21st. I can't wait. The official Wicked podcast is a Straw Hut Media production in association with Universal Pictures and Vanity Fair, hosted by Chris Murphy. Video, soundtrack, and music from Wicked and Wicked for Good, courtesy of Universal Pictures. Produced and edited by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Madison Cross. Mixing, sound design, and video editing by Silvana Alcala. Additional graphics by Ali Ahmed and Anna Claire Munoz. Production assistant Ashley Kane. But special thanks to our partners at Universal Pictures: Nicole Quenqua, Jennifer Chamberlain, Holly Vanderboord, Dean Smith, Madeline Marfis, Madison Fishman, Samantha Duarte, Katie Malley, Abby Holmes, Nikki Walsh, Marissa Mahoney, Allie Grove, and Vanessa Nakara. New episodes every Thursday. See you next week.
I like congratulations. Anything with lotion in it feels quite good to me.